This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business. How are you? This is a co-production of my father's place. And guess what we have? We have the Hitman Blues Band in attendance in the studio. We got Russ Alexander. And I want you to hear just a little bit of this song. This is called Bad Bad Man. And we'll be back in a second. But just want you to enjoy and sit back and listen to this great music. Rich Solomon here. So I didn't know this, but this is why we have pre-production meetings. They have 6 albums out in a solo. So, hey, this is Russ Alexander. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, so welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And so for people out there who are just on their internet search engines as this is playing, take a look at hitmanbluesband.com. But if you want to become part of the mailing list and get a couple of extra cool things, go to hitmanbluesband.net. Nice. And you can check them out. So, Russ, thanks so much for being here. So we grew up really close together.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I probably stole your mini bike at some point.
So I have to sneak into your garage now and try to get back.
No, right.
All right. So obviously you're a blues band, and I love the blues. I totally love the blues. How'd the band start?
I started the band back in '89, but that was a cover band. It wasn't until about maybe around 2000 that I actually did a recording using hired guns. My father, Ray Alexander, who is passed in 2002, was a world-renowned jazz vibist, and I'd been doing originals with the Hitman Blues Band starting a couple of years before that. I started writing and putting stuff. And he said, why don't you do an album? And I said, great. Who's going to pay for it? And he was like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll fund it. Who do you want on it? And I said, geez, who do I want? Well, I would love to get Bernard Purdie on there and Johnny Gale on, and as a producer, and Bobby Forrester on keys. Maybe you could sit in on a couple of things. And he said, well, call him. I'm like, what? Call Bernard Purdie? Because I had played with him a few times, but I called him, and I got everybody. I got Johnny Gale to be the producer and the bassist, and Bernard had just flown in from Japan, and he was flying out the next day. I got everybody together. We did all the rhythm tracks were done in one session, and which ended up being the way that all the albums went. All the rhythm tracks get done in one, like, mad and lunatic session, and then I'll overdub the guitar, and the vocals. And the reason being that because we're concentrating on getting the sounds on the drums and the bass and the keyboards or whatever, so I lay down scratch tracks for the vocals and the guitar because I'm cheap. I can always go in and do it. I don't have to pay myself much, so I can always go in and overdub. Whereas usually the guys, I got them for that day.
Right. So you gotta get the most out of them while you got them.
Gotta get the most out of it. And what invariably happens is if it's a 6 or 7 hour session, the first 3 hours we lay down 1 or 2 songs, and I'll be in absolute panic mode. And then we'll lay down like another 8 songs or 10 songs in the next 3 hours, and we'll just go. And it's just that it works so far.
So when you write music, are you like a computer guy? Are you a paper guy? Are you a walk around with your cell phone kind of guy? Or is it all those things? And do you keep things near your bed so if you wake up in the middle of the night with like a tune in your head or something like that?
Yes. All of those? All of those. I used to carry around paper in my back pocket, and I would write things down, write down song ideas, and I would sketch out little staffs and write the notes down. But now, because we have these wonderful cell phones, I have a MP3 recorder on it, and I will sing into it. And if I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, I'll try and force myself to actually use it, because you always go, oh, I'll remember this in the morning. No, you won't. You never will. You just aren't going to.
I remember I had this really long ongoing litigation, and we were wrestling with this problem. How do you explain like this particular phenomenon? It was like a medical thing. And what was the analogy to make people understand it in a way that brought it to common sense? And somehow, after years and years and years of litigation, I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, that's it. I had the eureka moment.
All right.
And I didn't write that. I said, oh, yeah, I'll remember this because this is brilliant. When I woke up, it leaked out and was gone.
I've had dreams where I've heard a song and thought, that is a great song. I wish I wrote something like that. And then I'll wake up and realize that I did write something like that in the dream. That was the song. That was my song, and desperately tried to remember it.
Right. But, if only you could put like a tape recorder to your head.
Right. Sure. Yeah. But yeah. So I do all of those things to try and remember it. And a little tip for anybody who's hearing this, who is a songwriter and sings ideas into your phone or your tape recorder, sing a scale first so that you know what key you are in, because I do have some, and now I do that as a rule, but I do have some ideas that I thought were good enough that I said, oh, I got to record this, and I'll listen back to them, and it's like, this is great, listen. No idea what the tonic, what the starting note is, or anything, and I try and puzzle it out, and
There are times at trial where I've written things down because it's like a cross-exam note, and then when it's time to do my cross-examination, what's that? What was I thinking?
Handfinger with a right.
So what is it about the blues that you love? Because I've always been a gigantic fan of the blues. Who did you listen to? Because they didn't really play they didn't play enough blues on the radio for the blues fans.
Right.
And yet some of the greatest bands in the world, like the Rolling Stones and other people, and Eric Clapton, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, were all influenced by, the great blues legends, Johnny Lee Hooker, and all those other guys.
Right. Well, at a certain point, probably in my late 20s, I started really discovering the blues, and I started listening to FUV. They had Tuesdays Just As Bad, and I used to record that and listen back to the tapes. But, I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. So, of course, I grew up on the Beatles and the Stones, and I got into progressive rock, and I was doing original bands since I was about 15, and I had a new wave band called Candy, and before that we had a progressive band called Childhood's End. We used to play the rock conventions at the Diplomat, and also played CBGBs with the Candy. But as time went by, I started thinking, look, I'm not getting any younger. What kind of genre could I be happy playing when I'm like 90? And not feel like an idiot. So now it turns out that there are two that you could do. One is the blues. The other is heavy metal. Because you could be 100 and play heavy metal, and people will still come to see you because they've got an amazing audience for metal.
I read on the internet like just the other day that in England, a couple of very old guys.
It was in Germany. I posted that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got out of the old age home and they found him at a metal concert.
It was the world's biggest metal concert starts with a W in Germany. And they snuck out and they found them around midnight or something and they didn't want to go home. But that's what I mean. You can, with metal, if your band's in their 70s, nobody cares. Like, yeah, fucking do it. And with blues, nobody really cares. The only difference is that the blues audience is generally an older audience. It's not as mixed. And,
and metal's younger?
Metal is more mixed. You'll have very young, you'll have very old.
Okay.
And, that's in this country. Now, when we tour and we're in England, to an extent, that is the same kind of a thing. But in other countries like Austria or France or Netherlands, it is really more mixed. People aren't that genre label conscious. Like, if you're playing in France, you could be playing to a crap load of people and you're a blues band on a Thursday. And on Friday, those same people will go out and they'll see a jazz band. And then Saturday, they'll go out and they'll see a metal band. They don't care. As long as it's done well, they just like music.
Right, they like music, yeah, as opposed to a genre, yeah.
Right, it's not as delineated as it is here.
Well, look, if you look at satellite radio, for example, it's like music of the 60s, music of the 70s, music of the 80s, the Springsteen channel, the Beatles channel, it really is. And I think I'm kind of like you, which is I kind of like a broad spectrum of music. I guess that's what's so nice about my father's place, because there is, all kinds of people. I mean, we had, Blu-rays and Kate Taylor and Livingston Taylor and Buster Poindexter. I mean, Sophie B. Hawkins is coming. So they really have this whole wide array of musicians.
Well, now we're playing there this Friday, which is August 10th. We're going to be splitting the bill with the Sweet Susie Band. And, and that's going to be a great night because it's, she's a great performer and she has a great band. And then, obviously I like my band. We've got a nice 9-piece group with 3 horns and 2 backup singers. And, it's a lot of fun. We do a lot of laughing. And then Saturday night we're playing at Treme and Islip, but that's just as a quartet. And my bassist can't make it, so I'm using Clutch Riley, who, I don't know if you know him, great guy, very funny. And I don't even know what we're going to be playing. It's just going to be whatever off-the-wall stuff we can think of. It won't be a regular Hitman show with all my originals. It'll be a lot of the originals and then a bunch of, cover tunes about probably drugs and sex.
Well, that's always good.
Yeah.
So speaking of covers, should we take a little listen to Hoochie Coochie Man?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to cue it up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this particular version?
We do a few cover tunes, not many, and we don't do them anything like the original because why? Nobody's going to do Hoochie Coochie Man, better than Muddy. It's already done there. So we have our own take on songs like this, and this is what I came up with for it.
This is Hoochie Coochie Man from the Hitman Blues Band, hitmanbluesband.com.
Told my mama on the day I was born, you got a boy child coming. It's gonna be a son of a gun. Gonna make all the women jump and shout. And the world gonna know what it's all about because I'm him. Cat bone, I got a mojo too. I got Johnny Cockaroo. It's gonna mess with you. Gonna take all the women, leave me by the hand, and the world's gonna know I'm a hoochie coochie man because I'm him. Yeah. day of the 7th month, the 7th doctor said he was born for good luck. Just you wait and see. I got $700. Don't you fool with me, because I'm him. Yeah, everybody knows I'm him. I'm a hoochie coochie man, and everybody knows I'm him. Here we go.
All right, we're going to finish this up in the background. So this is Richard Solomon. I'm with Russ Alexander, the Hitman Blues Band, hitmanbluesband.com. And for kind of cool downloads and things like that, a 5-song sampler, go to hitmanbluesband.net. Now, one of the things I was going to ask you, maybe we'll do this on the after the break, is who did you watch as blues musicians? As a fan in the seats. We'll talk about that on the other side of this, but I'd love to talk a little bit about that. All right, so This is Richard Solomon, taking care of business, My Father's Place Radio, and we'll be back in a minute. Keep it locked in because we got a lot more radio ahead of us.
Nights waiting for sleep to overtake me.
All right, Richard Solomon, Russ Alexander from the Hitman Blues Band, and that was just a little taste of a song called Angel in the Shadows. I'll give you just a little bit more. Here's just a little bit more.
Wouldn't break me. Time is going faster. Days slipping by. She's here.
All right, so I'm going to ask you about this song in a second, but I did promise everybody who's listening that before the break we're going to talk about who your blues concert experiences were. So who did you see that you just really still remember to this day that were great blues artists?
Well, quite a few actually. I grew up on jazz because my dad was a jazz musician and rock. So it was through a lot of the bands that were blues influenced that I started getting an appreciation for the blues without even really knowing what it was. I mean, I was pretty ignorant musically about some of the genres that had come not that long before, like the 50s. And, now let's say that in 1971 or 72, I was looking at songs from the 50s as if they had been written 1,000 years ago. Now it's 2018. You look at the same thing. You look at a song from maybe 2000, and it seems like it was yesterday. But I saw guys like Clapton. I saw Stevie Ray. Of course, that was when I was older. Johnny Copeland. Brooklyn Slim. I remember going to see when I was younger. The local guitar hero Johnny Gale, who was a rock blues guy, who just floored me with how well he played, and still does, by the way. And a lot of other guitarists, and not even just guitarists, but just musicians in general. And it didn't necessarily just have to be blues, but you could. When something's done well and it's done with feeling and it's done with soul, then it hits you and it influences you in a lot of different ways. I remember reading about Robert Johnson when they first kind of started really rediscovering his stuff and putting it out there again. And they came out with that boxed set. Now, I already had some Robert Johnson records that I'd gotten before, and I sort of got it, but it was compared to let's say, I don't know, Deep Purple. You know, this is worlds away. It's a whole different way of listening, really, to understand what you're hearing. And to, I used to get lessons from Johnny Gill. I think I called him every day for a year. And I think I got 10 lessons out of him. And I remember once he put on this record of some guy playing, and it was like, plink, plink, plunk, plink. And he's like, isn't that great? And me, at this point, I'm listening to Jimmy Page. And I'm going, no, that's horrible. What is that? And he looked at me and he said, you're not listening. I'll never forget that. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I listened to that same thing years later, and I was like, yeah, I wasn't listening. I didn't know how to listen, what to listen for in order to appreciate it. And the same thing now, when I see people who are just really love rap, I mean, they're just into it and they just dig it. I don't hear it. I'm not listening. I can't hear what they're hearing. So, you know, the loser on that is me. But I just, you know, I've tried, but I just really can't. I just can't get into it. I can't hear what they're hearing.
Now, what was the song with the plinks? Do you remember?
I don't even remember, man. It might have been Guitar Boogie, but I don't think so.
Do you remember who the artist was?
No, not at all.
Oh, wow.
Not at all. No.
All right. So we were playing, you know, to sort of enter this segment, Angel in the Shadows. What is the significance of that song?
Well, that's the title track off the second album. And you can tell that I'm old because I say album.
I used to go to record stores.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, me too. Yeah, kids today, they don't know. You can't clean a lid on an MP3. It just doesn't work. So,
do you still have a dishwasher?
What?
Do you remember the red velvet dishwasher?
Oh, yeah.
And you know, the little plastic 45
Oh, sure, yeah.
thing. I don't know what you call them, but...
An adapter, 45 adapter.
Right. Now, there was two kinds. There was the one that was like plastic with like arms, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then there was the one that was sort of like this...
round thing that you stuck on there.
Yes.
Yeah, solid. Yeah.
You know, exactly, yes.
Yeah,
I'm glad you can read my mind, because, we even have, believe it or not, an 8-track tape player in the office that still works. My brother and I are attorneys, and one of the things we have a Radio Shack 8-track tape player, and we still have some surviving 8-track tapes.
So do I.
Yes.
I still have some 8-tracks. Yeah.
In fact, you know, the funny thing is, when you play an 8-track for people, they're a little astonished that the song will change, you know, like the tracks will change in the middle of a song.
Yeah.
They'll be like, da-da-da-da-da, click. Where at least, you know, when you had an album, you had to turn it over to go to the second side, but at least nothing was like in the middle.
Usually. There were a couple. I think Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth, I think it faded out at some point, and then you turned it over.
to restart.
You know, probably a Zappa album or two. But with Angel in the Shadows, some songs come very, very easily. You know, you just write them, they're there, they scream at you until you write them, and then you write them down. Angel in the Shadows was like kind of giving birth to an elephant. It just took a while, because I knew what I wanted, and I just couldn't get it the way I wanted it. But when it came together, I thought, like, okay, this is good. I mean, I'm happy with this. And my wife, Joanne, at the time, it's not my wife, but she was sending out press kits all over the world to see if she could get us international bookings. And out of God knows how many kits she sent out, I mean, at least a couple of hundred, we got one response from a guy in England who booked me for a 6-week tour. Excellent. Just like that.
Wow.
And it was funny because we had done like I did 3 gigs with an English band backing me up, and he came to the 3rd gig, and the deal was that the band would open up, they would do their set, and then I would come out and they would back me up. And the first song that I called was an instrumental, and the second tune was whatever, I think it was Green Thing. And he turned around and he looked at my wife and he said, "Now I can breathe." He didn't know if I could actually sing or not. He didn't know if it was just studio magic that allowed me to sing. But once he heard me actually sing, he was like, oh, he sounds just like the album, so he can sing. But he booked us because of that song, Angel in the Shadows. That he said, I get a lot of, you know, stuff sent to me. That stood out. And that's why he booked it. And from there we started going, touring internationally pretty regularly up until about 2008, when financial obligations kind of made everything come crashing down, and I couldn't go back until 2011. So, and that made a big difference to that whole kind of we had to almost start all over again.
Does a gap in touring give you a perspective that you don't get if you just keep going? Or is it just really like...
No, because we're not touring like, we're not on the road like 10 months a year. We're on the road like, 6 weeks and then, 3 weeks or whatever. And, it's not... I'm not a road rat, although at this point I wouldn't mind it.
You hear about life on the road. It sounds like it's tougher more than it is glamorous because you're not in your own bed. You're not eating the best, healthiest food.
Yeah, well, we try.
You're schlepping. Whatever. The hours are long and whatever, and
it. Well, especially if you're not a known band, and you don't have roadies, You're done, you're tired, you're shot, you just left it all on the stage, and now you've got to start breaking everything down and load into your van or your truck or whatever you're doing. And, it is not easy, but it is also quite rewarding when you're playing for different people and, you're seeing how they react and you're feeding off the audience. It is not financially rewarding. This is why you see things like the Rolling Stones spot brought to you by Lipton Tea, because it is expensive as hell. People say like, oh yeah, you go tour and you make money. No, actually you don't. Your expenses are really high. Merchandise is very often what keeps a tour solvent. Unless you're one of these bands that really can draw incredible numbers of people, and it takes a while to get to that. I mean, if you can bring in, 5,000 people to a show, then buddy, you're doing good. You're probably doing real well.
Now, without naming names, we use a particular kind of software to book bands, and we see what their touring history is. Mm-hmm. And I'm amazed at some of the name acts, because it gives you like an idea of how many people they can draw, what their average ticket price is, and all this other stuff. And I was amazed at some of the artists who only drew so many seats. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, I thought they would do like 10 times that. And, and you'd be surprised because some of these people, I won't mention any names, but looking at the data, I'm like, I was floored, like, wow,
We've seen some great artists at whatever they call Westbury now.
Well, it used to be the Westbury Music Fair when I was,
Right, whatever name it has now.
Yeah.
We've seen some acts there where they gave tickets away, and it was in the half round, and it wasn't sold out. And they were artists that we used to see at the Garden.
Look, I saw the Jefferson Starship when Paul Kantner was still alive,
mm-hmm.
and it was a headline with Quicksilver Messenger service.
Oh, sure, yeah.
There was only 50 people in the whole place.
Wow.
I was stunned. I mean, it's like, this is the Jefferson Starship. Yeah, they didn't have Grace Slick, but they still had Marty Balin, and and I'm like, look, this is a legendary band.
It is a whole different dynamic now. We're competing against things that we didn't used to have to compete against. We're competing against Netflix. We're competing against drunk driving laws, which is good, but still, we're competing against high costs for pretty much everything, and it's tough to get people to come out. And people, I believe that people are working harder now than they have ever worked. It's just the nature of things that we have computers now, and some things have been made easier, but other things, it's just not unusual for people to be putting in 50-hour weeks or 60-hour weeks
or more,
and you're constantly having to up your game in whatever you're doing.
Well, the cell phones make you 24-hour accessible.
There's that too.
There's no busy signals anymore. No.
Right. And we're constantly inundated by news and social media and everything else. It is an extremely stressful time. So if you're performing you've got to offer your audience a cathartic experience. They've got to be able to walk out of your show and say, you know what, I'm glad I went tonight. And I mean, that's what we try and do, and I'm sure that's what most groups are trying to do.
That's their hope, yes.
The idea is that we're playing on a Friday night. People have been working all day. They've been working all week. Now, when we were younger, we would save it up for Friday night. Now, this Friday night is like, good, I'll go home and I'll get a decent night's sleep for a change. But if we get people to come out, that's a big compliment, because you went home and you didn't just sink into the couch.
Right.
You actually got back up again, got in the car, drove, went out, and we feel we owe it to you to make it worth your while to have come out and done that.
All right, so speaking of my father's place, did you play there when it was on Bryant Avenue?
Oh, yeah. I played there.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I played there with my group Candy, which was back in the spandex days of New Wave. So, yeah, we were all young and played we played the City Circuit, Peppermint Lounge, and
I remember the Peppermint Lounge.
Oh, sure, wow. Yeah, wow. And wherever else the hell we were there, all the CBs and all of that. Never played Maxis. I always regretted that. And we would play that place, and I'm pretty sure that we used to sell it out, and I have no idea how. I wish I could remember how we used to do that. But we had fun back then, too. It was an all-original group, and we would do covers on some gigs, but when we played a place like my father's place, we would do originals, because Happy even back then was very pushing for, original acts, which was great.
No change. No change in the new place. Yeah.
I mean, we used to have songs that were basically radio type tunes, but we also had some other things like we had a song called Lemon Man, which was about Quaaludes. It actually saved our lives when we got booked into a biker dust bar. That is, a biker bar where everybody was on dust, and we're walking in there with our spandex and seeing all these guys, and the agent who booked us in there, who was like 6'20", and just drove by the bar, saw who was there, and kept driving. He didn't even stop to come in. Wow. He just kind of left us there. I looked at the other guitarists and I said, "We're not getting out of here alive, are we?" And he said, "Nope." And we opened up with the song Lemon Man, where we had little like foam Quaaludes that had like 714 on them, and threw them out to the audience. And after that, we could do no wrong. Wow. They loved us. We were buying us drinks. "Hey, you want to do some dust?" I said, "No, thanks. I'm good." But we did that, and we did those tunes also at my father's place and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Do you have to this day any of the tapes of those concert performances at my father's place?
I think we have one. Of
one song or one session?
No, one session.
I would love to hear that. You got to break that out, because I think that would be a great archive. We play. I'm collecting memorabilia, tunes, and things like that for sort of a digital experience.
Okay.
So if you have those, I'm going to try to put together a digital archive of.
I think we actually have a video that somebody made.
Really? Oh, see, that'd be great if we can get that.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Take a look, because that would be phenomenal, because. I'm trying to interview people who used to play, or have played, or have memories, or WLIR concerts, or whatever.
I saw great shows at my father's place, man. I still have a car. I have at least one T-shirt from my father's place from back then.
Do you have any of the ticket stubs?
No, but I have a T-shirt from a band it was called Trigger, that I never heard of before and never heard of again. But
you like them enough to buy the.
I have the T-shirt, there were so many great acts that played there.
All right, so speaking of great acts, the Hitman Blues Band is coming to my father's place. If you hear this in the future, then they will have played, but you can hear this interview. We're going to outro with a song called Blues Enough.
That's the title track from our 5th album.
I will be right back after this very quick break. All right, you're rocking with Rich Solomon with the Hitman Blues Band. We got Russ Alexander in the studio. HitmanBluesBand.com, HitmanBluesBand.net. They'll be playing at my father's place. But if you missed it, and this is the hit future, then they had a great show. All right. Now, let's talk about Blues Enough. I'm going to play this in the background just very slightly. But tell me about Blues Enough.
I got, the song?
Yeah.
Okay, I got shanghaied into judging one of those guitar master concerts,
Yes.
you know. And it was for the King of the Blues, you know, guitar. And they gave us a list of criteria, 5 criteria. And one, you know, was technique, and one was execution, and you know, whatever it was. And then the last question was blues content. And I thought, so is it blues enough? And then I could imagine, it's like, yes, Mr. Zappa, that was quite good, but it really didn't sound too much like Johnny Copeland, so I'm sorry, no. And so I went home and I wrote the song, you know, Is It Blues Enough For You? And
That's a great story.
all my songs, basically almost all of my songs are about my own personal experience.
But isn't that true of every songwriter for the most part?
Oh, maybe.
Because what else? All we have is our subjective realities.
Sure.
So in many ways, it's just that you're the window to those realities for everybody else to share them with you, whereas a lot of us just have our subjective reality, and that's all there is. It's just we kind of keep it to ourselves. You get to express it and share it. So that way,
hopefully, yeah.
You know, that's kind of cool. So while we're here, so speaking of, this is a good transition. A song called "The World Moves On."
Right.
That was drawn from your experiences about the world.
Well, that's the title track of our most recent album, and it's basically about loss and how you deal with it, or how we have to deal with it. It's the introduction that I give to this song is, you know, as we get older, we have to deal with things changing. Neighborhoods change, and people change, and neighborhoods die. And people die. And we have to learn how to deal with it because the world moves on.
Very true. Very true. Let's get into this. This is The World Moves
Well, I
On.
knew this day was coming. Each beginning has an end. But it's just too hard to face it. It's so easy to pretend. Smiling faces caught forever, living in a photograph, while the sun is dropping lower as we hit the second half. The world moves on, but the center's gone. Now I can't hold on as the world moves on. Good times I remember, I didn't recognize them then. Now the buildings all are falling, they can never rise again. And did I ever really thank you? Did you know how good you've done? to midnight, while shadows rise up one by one. And the world moves on, but my center's gone. I can't hold on as the world moves on. Oh, yeah, the world moves on. Ah, but the center's gone. I can't hold on. As the world moves on.
All right, that song was called "The World Moves On." So, do you need to have experienced sadness to understand or to hear the blues?
You need to, well, first of all, the blues isn't only about sad. I mean, there's
Struggle.
there's blues tunes about getting drunk and about having sex and about laughing and eating and, I mean, it's all the blues. You have to experience emotions to understand anything, but people go, oh, well, do you have to be depressed or sad to write the blues? Well, when you're going through depression, which most people have, you can't do much of anything. I mean, you're, not really in your right mind. But I think the blues is very hopeful in that when you hear a blues tune that is dealing with sadness and with loss, and you're dealing with that yourself, then you know that somebody went through the same thing that you went through. And not only did they recover from it, not only did they get through it to the other side, but they got through it well enough that they were able to write a song about it and record it, which is no small feat, and then get it out there. So, you're going to be okay. And this is some proof here that it will work out.
Because the world moves on.
The world moves on. We move on. Nothing stays the same. People go back to their childhood homes and say everything's different. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, we kind of grew up in the same places. And, I remember how undeveloped Northeast Queens was way back in the day. I mean, there were rabbits.
Oh,
and, where I grew up, there was a little tomato farm and a horse not too far from where I lived. Yeah. And that's all gone. And there was the houses weren't so compressed. The parking, I remember as a kid, you go to Manhattan for the day. Your parents get you in the car, you drive through, just park almost anywhere. You just park, and then now you need an app to find a parking spot.
Although I will say that when I was a kid and I would go into Manhattan, you could see the smog hanging down, and that's pretty much gone for now.
Right, and the waters are a little bit cleaner.
You can't walk across the East River anymore.
Right, and it won't set on fire.
Yeah, you can't set it on fire, no. But, what can I say? And 42nd Street, oh my God.
Well, they certainly cleaned that up. That was a very interesting place in its day.
I mean, when they first did that, and you had a bunch of sailors going like, "Was ist das los?" and "Wer der Bum Bum?" It's Mickey Mouse. Was ist?
So what is the difference between playing for American audiences and playing for European audiences as a musician?
I will say that people are people wherever you go. But depending on where you are, I found people overseas will pay more attention. They'll be a more polite audience. They'll be a more attentive audience. But then again, realize that they're looking at, we play modern blues. It's not, we're not rehashing older blues as you've heard. We do kind of a combination of stuff and out pops modern blues.
Which we need. We need modern blues because otherwise we can't just have a blues museum and just keep going into the old stuff.
Of course. How many times can you keep on playing I'm a Man, exactly the way it was done? I mean, Willie Dixon's great, but come on. But when we're playing overseas, they're looking at, like, this New York blues band that's coming over, and it's not their local guys that's playing. So first of all, it's like, do these guys suck? And if we don't suck, now we got brownie points. Because we're an American, a New York blues band, and we're not black. Also, though, we do have all different people that we play with, that doesn't really enter into it, but we're not their idea of American blues, because they have a very specific idea of what a blues band should be. So if we don't suck, we get brownie points right off the bat, and they're going to listen closer. They, if anybody read Keith Richards' autobiography, and he talks about when they were first starting out, people would get into fist fights over what they considered the real blues to be. And it'd be like, if it wasn't a guy sitting on a chair with a straw hat and like a flannel shirt, playing solo guitar with a cigarette hanging, then it wasn't real blues, and anybody else was offended. And then you'd have other guys going, no, Muddy Waters is real blues. Oh, yeah, I'll kill you. So is the audience different? The audience, I believe, might have different expectations because we are not their local group. And I've heard some groups, man, overseas that would just scare the crap out of you. I mean, fantastic.
Now, but are the song requests that you get from overseas different than the song requests you get here?
No, remember that we do basically original.
No, I understand, but people from your albums. In other words, of your 6 albums, do people go, play Bad Bad Man or something like that? You get more of that here as opposed to maybe in My Father's Place, that people come up to you after shows, I wish you would have played, I don't know, Blues Enough or something. Or
No, generally, people who are familiar with our music will ask for, it's not like they're going to ask for something different there than here. It's just up to the person's taste. But, just to give you an example of how people are the same all over the place. We were headlining at a festival for Monica Madgwick in I forgot the name. It starts with a T. Anyway, it was in the southern coast of England, like, really not on the beaten path, and beautiful hotels, a little, seaside kind of area thing, and it was great. But after we're done with our set, Monica goes, we're going to be having a jam afterwards. You're coming, right? And we're like, oh, yeah. We're coming. Yeah. Oh, we're coming. So we're playing, and the band that had come on before us was the host, the guy, Robin Beebe, who's an incredible player. This guy's amazing. So he was hosting the jam, and the guys know my feelings about Mustang Sally, which is basically, yes or no answer. Should I play Mustang Sally? Are you Wilson Pickett? No, then don't play it. But it's 1:00 in the morning, maybe 1:30. I'm tanked because Mana keeps feeding me, more and more beers, and we're eating, and some of the guys from my band are getting up to sit in, and here we are in sort of the middle of nowhere, man. And what song do they call out at 1:30 in the morning for them to jam on?
Mustang Sally.
People have said that there was a study that said that at any given time, someone in the world is playing Mustang Sally. Right now, this second. When you go to sleep, anybody who's listening, if you go to sleep and you wake up in the middle of the night and you go to the bathroom, while you're going, you can be aware that somewhere in the world there's a band playing Mustang Sally.
Well, that was sort of like the statistic that somewhere in the world they were playing I Love Lucy rerun somewhere.
Well, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
We'll say.
So, in the little time we have left, what would you like to tell the people listening about you, the band, your passion for the blues, and what is the Hitman Blues Band experience like, for maybe someone who's not been to a show?
Okay, if you've ever tried herding cats, then that's the Hitman Blues Band. And, look, there's been times in my life when I've gone through some not pleasant experiences. And music has helped get me through that. Certain tunes have resonated with me for certain experiences where I would just listen to that song or songs, over and over perhaps. And it gave me for whatever reason, it gave me something to hold on to and help me get through certain things that have happened. That's what we are. That's what the band is about. That's what myself as a songwriter is about. That's what we try and do. Our goal is to make somebody's life better or easier in whatever way that we possibly can. And we try and do it through music. We try and do it through our live shows. We try and make people laugh. And sometimes, with a song like The World Moves On or I'm All About You, which is, or a kind of a love song, or Angel in the Shadows, things like that. Something that will just make them feel good. Something that'll make them, make their lives somewhat a bit easier. I remember we played Blues on the Farm, which was a big festival in England, and we did The World Moves On, and afterwards I went over to the booth and it was, signing CDs and stuff. And this woman came up and she said, that song, I lost my father 2 weeks ago, and I was crying when I heard that song, and it really kind of helped. And she's like, I want to buy the CD. And I said, you're not buying the CD. Here, take the CD. I'm signing, take a T-shirt, But that's what we want to try and get through.
Wow, this is an amazing show. So Russ Alexander, the Hitman Blues Band, catch them at my father's place. But if you missed it, maybe they'll be coming back, and you'll see them on a subsequent date. It's hitmanbluesband.com, and let's see. We're going to leave. We'll do some music on the way out. Let's see what we got here. Hold on. This is track 7.
This country.
Streets of Downtown.
Vietnam.
All right. So this is Richard Solomon. See that crack engineering that I do? So it's Richard Solomon. Take Care of Business by Father's Place Radio. See you in a week.
They don't see the hero. Just another shabby man.